will find these like little scapegoats of like differences in other people to like justify their oppression and subjugation and ultimately like their genocide if they don't comply.
And that's
And
one
I thought that was
word.
interesting. He did such a good job of connecting that. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. We're on the
And
same page, Maddie.
the great thing is Daddy.
Maddie.
Whoa. Okay, I was about to say
Call
Mariah.
me.
Marxist Matt.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Liberation Podcast. Today we will be discussing, analyzing, and reviewing Operation Bounce House by Matt Dinniman. Today and possibly in the future, we are going to be fundraising for something different. Usually we do the Northern Gaza Water Fund, if you've been listening for a while, but we are going to be increasing our support for what is most needed right now, which is Cuba. So we are going to have a fundraiser link for the Let Cuba Live drive or campaign, which is being done to raise money for the Cuban citizens to have solar panels because of the Trump administration's intervention in Venezuela. It has caused an issue with Cuba not being able to get enough oil, which is going to start affecting their infrastructure. So these solar panels are going to be able to help the Cuban citizens power their schools and their hospitals and like the essentials. So check out the link in the bio. I am your co-host, Mariah, and you can find me at Hungry Eye on all social media platforms.
And I'm your co-host, Kristen. You can find me at 10CBR on all social media platforms.
And if you would like to keep up with the podcast outside of our podcast, check out our Instagram and TikTok at Literary Liberation and Twitter at LitLib Podcast. Today, we are going to be discussing probably, I mean, it is early in the year, one of the more topical books that we've read in a while, I would argue. And also, if you have been listening or keeping up with the podcast, you know, Chris and I are obsessed with Dungeon Crawler Carl. We reviewed the entire series up until the most recent book that is coming out. So this book was in our 2026 most anticipated reads. We're very excited. It's a standalone. It is not within the Dungeon Crawler Carl universe, although he very easily could have made this work, but we'll get into that later. This is hot off the press. This book literally just came out on Tuesday. It's February 15th right now.
Yeah, when we're recording this will be posted. It'll have been out for a little bit over a week. Me and Mariah both binge read it starting Tuesday, and we both finished it today. But if you don't know anything about Operation Bounce House, what it is about basically is you're following Oliver and a group of his friends that all live on this planet called New Sonora that has been more recently colonized by ex-cons and scientists that are from Earth. They had to travel like hundreds of thousands of light years away. So it's been like generations on a ship, and they finally landed in I think technically Oliver's like grandfather was the first people down on the planet. So they're kind of like the first generation that's really been fully integrating into this society of living on a planet that was uninhabited by anything else before. But then a corporation is funding a video game that ends up basically attacking their planet and trying to take it over. And that's what you're following.
It's very much think like Helldivers, Starship Troopers, or Ender's Game. Like it's in that realm, but a more contemporary adaptation. Matt Dinniman said in an interview that I saw on Facebook, which is linked to a podcast that he had done, Counter-Strike and Call of Duty were kind of what he took inspiration for this, because if you don't know, Matt Dinniman writes literary RPGs. He likes video games and whatnot, so a lot of his stuff is inspired by different games. So this one has that element. So you are getting social commentary about some really big topics in here. And I guess if you're listening to this, maybe you don't know a lot about Matt Dinniman. He's Timothy.
We love him. We've talked about him in depth. Obviously, Brian mentioned we did review all of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and in the first episode of Dungeon Crawler Carl, we did definitely go really in depth into Matt Dinniman. He's never like specifically stated what he like politically identify as, but I think after reading Operation Bounce House and obviously reading like Dungeon Crawler Carl, it is very obvious to Mariah and I whether or not like you yourself or anybody around him or even Matt Dinniman himself would to admit it. Low key, he's a comrade.
Yeah. I mean, I feel his like the anarchist cookbook
Yeah.
is kind of indicative because you're like, is this just a snarky title? But if you are somebody that is pretty interested in history and politics and whatnot, it's very easy to extract the meaning. However, not everyone is able to do
Well
that.
versed.
Chris and I have found some very interesting reviews of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, which is his most popular series. Before this, he had Dominion on. Is it Dominion on Blades or of the Blades?
Something
I
like
don't
that. And
remember.
then something kaiju.
Yeah, he's got a kaiju book and then Shivered Sky. I don't know. I've
Which we
never read any of
haven't
them.
read
So
any of his other novels. This is our first non Dungeon Crawler Carl read. And I know like going into this, Mariah and I were both worried that it's just gonna be like Dungeon Crawler Carl again, like Dungeon Crawler 2.0. And it's not. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I really enjoyed it. I think I ended up giving it like a 4.5 stars. I thought the political commentary that was within it was really robust and really well thought out. And I think after reading, like, I think, like, believe it or not, like, Dungeon Crawler Carl is more subtle with its political messaging than this book is. This book is really in your face. It's like, if you read this, you cannot come away with what Matt Dinniman, like, you will never be, like, there's no confusion about what Matt Dinniman thinks with what's going on in the world.
yeah, I would agree. This has solidified precisely what he believes,
What we already
which is
knew. What
interesting
we knew.
because we have to talk about the controversy of Matt Dinniman, which I found out about this maybe 2 weeks ago. I think I had the flu when I had initially like read into it because one of my friends is very into like Reddit and saw it. So Matt Dinniman has his own Reddit page for Dungeon Crawler Carl. This is not uncommon. A lot of authors do this. But when I became aware, I don't know what the date is on it exactly. It was the 24th of January. I'll link the Reddit post. So you should read it. He said on his page, he said, we are not
TLDR.
talking, yeah, TLDR, we're not talking current event politics here, and every deliberately political post will be deleted. Repeat violators will be banned. This is why. And then he's like, he goes into it. I'll, if you're watching this, I'll put the screenshot on the screen. But if not, again, it's going to be linked. But he kind of like gets into it how this book was supposed to be a lot more clear on his political stances because he's always being asked like what his politics are, and he thinks that his book should speak for themselves and that people should read it and then like come to their own conclusions about the world. That was like the essential, like what he's putting out in this, which I don't necessarily agree. Mind you, this was when all of the ICE protests are happening, right? I am saying
Mm-hmm.
happening. They're not happening. They're happening. They are being actively suppressed, and people were bringing up the different ICE protests. So that was
I don't.
what inspired the post initially,
Well,
from
because
my
I don't really
understanding.
know any of the context around it. Because Mariah only sent me this post, so this is like my own. I'm not in the Dungeon Crawler Carl subreddit at all. I don't really use Reddit. But I think because what he states is that he doesn't want anybody discussing current political events, which is really odd to me because if you read Operation Bounce House, there's something very currently politically relevant to it. And I think the problem is that with the way Matt Dinniman, I think what is happening is that a lot of right wingers are probably going into Dungeon Crawler Carl, and we already do have a huge literacy crisis here in America specifically, and a huge media literacy crisis just in general, where people are they consume very clearly left-wing things. We've seen this with multiple things. I mean, you have like what The Matrix is a popular example. Fight Club is another popular example. Like all of these very clear left-wing messaging things. Troopers, another like relevant example, especially with this, where people don't understand that it's satire or making fun of like right-wing things. You have right-wingers trying to co-opt it and saying like, oh, this is just like real life, but then they don't understand that one, it's either making fun of them or it's trying to make a social commentary or political commentary over what it is saying. And I think almost Matt Dinniman is, I mean, no offense, he's old, right? Like, I don't know how old he is, but he's obviously older
I think he's in his
than,
40s, like maybe late
so Gen
40s.
X.
That's my guess. From what I remember seeing, he's got gray hair. So like
Yeah, he's
obviously
old.
I know younger people can get it, but he like a lot of it is like millennial core, like it's like campy millennial core, and that's part of the charm of the Matt Dinniman books is that it has like this little chuggy element, you know, and I appreciate it for what it is. But he is very idealistic. I think in this, it kind of reminds me of like Suzanne Collins. Like what he's trying to do is like, no, when I need to say something, I'm going to say it in my books. I don't know
Which
why people are so afraid of just fucking because they don't want to alienate people. I get it. He like wants to bring people into the Dungeon Crawler Carl community and then like have them become
he's trying to
radicalized.
radicalize people
Well,
without, because the thing is, and I think because of the way that the right is, and I want people that are listening to this realize that we are mostly talking about this within the American context of people consuming literature and things like that, because that's obviously what we're experienced with. We live in America, hello. um but a lot of the people here, specifically like in the United States, I think a lot of right wingers and Republicans and stuff, they see like leftist author wokeness and stuff like that, and they immediately like push it to the side, and they're like, I'm not consuming that, blah blah blah. But then you have these same people that will then play like Disco Elysium and be like, this game isn't woke, and you're like, how fucking stupid can you be? And that's like the same thing, like the people that consume like Dungeon Crawler Carl, if you come out of this thinking that like Matt Dinniman is a right winger, you're objectively like stupid. I'm sorry.
I think it's because like in the first couple of books, Matt Dinniman leans really hard on like not to get like spoilery, but it's very like corporatism, and he's using some satire that has been brought into controversy, which I think is fair. I think it's fair to assess and acknowledge like what it is to kind of like hook these people in and reel them in. It's a gamble. What's going to happen? But I think given like Kristen said, what we have going on, you're expecting a lot because a lot of the time it's like the people like Kristen and I who are using this book as a tool to bring up
Mm-hmm.
conversations with the people around us. So it's like, yeah, it's a tool, but like we're doing the legwork. We're explaining the
Yes.
allegories. It's not going to do it in itself. However, this book, I
I think
think we can do a lot more. And I'm so curious because right now, the book is sitting as a 4.18 star average, and there's 1,800 ratings, 680 reviews. Like, it's very low right now for Matt Dinniman, and his books are very highly rated.
I
You can
imagine
look at
not a
his
lot of people
Audible.
have finished it yet.
I keep seeing Matt's posting people at like events, and it's
Yes, there's a
sold
lot of
out
people there.
events. It's
Yes.
crazy. I've never seen anything like that for like. I mean, I know Matt Dinniman has gotten huge in the last like couple of years, but it's way more than I would have expected for this specifically. I was not expecting that because I've never really seen anybody talk about it. If I'm gonna be honest, I haven't seen anyone talk about it.
Well, I think because, again, this is hot off the press. It just came out. I don't know. I didn't see any like art. I know people did have ARC reviews because you can see the reviews on the Goodreads before like the book came out. There was reviews from a couple months ago and stuff. And I know this has a pretty good breakdown. I'm pretty sure like 4 is like the highest rating. And I was looking at like the 1 and 2 star reviews, and the only people that were rating it lowly were just mad it wasn't Dungeon Crawler Carl. Like, everyone's like, I love Dungeon Crawler Carl, but this just isn't that. It's not as funny. Like, actually, this one's almost like talking about way more serious topics. And I think it does still have a bit of that Matt Dinniman humor, but you can tell he's taking it a lot more seriously because of the subject matter of this is so much more important now. Versus, I think Dungeon Crawler Carl is a much more broad idea of what could be happening in the world, versus Operation Bounce House is very clearly, and I think if you've read it and if you're this far in the episode, you obviously have some type of interest in it. It's about Palestine.
Oh, 100%. Like,
Quite literally.
I was texting Chris and I was like, this is Ender's Game, but if it were Palestine. And then as that progressed, I was like, it's literally like it's exploring the ethics of resistance and just like how imperialism functions and like who is funding it. It's
Yes.
very clear. It is, you cannot look away from it. It explores like xenophobia, just like general
Yes.
like racism. I think there's even some like I don't know if you noticed like some critiques of like liberal feminism that were kind of brought up. You get to
Yes.
talk about the alt-right pipeline from video games. Like
Yes.
there is so much present in here. And since we're at like the 15-minute mark, I think this is your last chance. If you wanted to read it, I think you
Read it.
should. But if you listen any farther, you can't get upset because I'm gonna spoil things because I got a lot to say.
I mean,
And I just finished this book 20 minutes ago, so it's fresh off the press in my brain.
I think Mariah and I, we both highly recommend this, whether or not it's not a perfect 5-star book for either of us. I don't think. I do think in some aspects it is a little bit slow. It's not quite Dungeon Crawler Carl, but I think it's better than the Anarchist Cookbook, I would say, like that specific book, within the series. I think Matt Dinniman does a great job at world building. There's so much to be explored. And this is honestly a great book club read. Like, I think Matt Dinniman does a great job about being able to make books that you can talk about with other people. And that's why I think like Dungeon Crawler Carl is so huge, because there's so many aspects that you can bring in and discuss. This one is much better. This one has more opportunity to discuss. I think it's going so much more in, and I see seeing that post, that Reddit post, in like hindsight, like now seeing it, it makes so much more sense, because I think the thing is that seeing, like, he sees people getting turned off from his Reddit being like, oh, you're stupid if you think that Dungeon Crawler Carl is right wing and stuff like that, which, like, yes, they are, but maybe you shouldn't say that to someone if you are trying to radicalize them. So I can see like that aspect of it, because I can't even imagine a right winger reading this book and not seeing the parallels or what Matt Dinniman clearly believes. Because I don't even think that this falls into any type of like populist argument like the Hunger Games does.
No, it's very like objective. I think that's like the whole thing is he has this whole book. I was just sad and depressed the entire time. It was not a fun, bingeable book. I do not think anybody should binge this, because we start off super early with like, they're just like farmers. Like, they're just like farmers on this colony. And we learn very quickly that it's like political prisoners that were sent here. So it has kind of like this, like dispossessed sort of element, like Ursula K. Le Guin's, like where all of the anarchists got sent off to the moon, and it's kind of like that. You have like the prisoners, and a lot of them are political prisoners.
And then there's
just people they wanted to set away
that want to,
so like
that want a better world because of
terraform.
Like, well, because they talk about too, like Earth still exists in this world, right? And the way that Matt Dinniman, like, he has like the power of prophecy that I think like Octavia Butler and like Ursula K. Le Guin have like within their novels, that like I feel like if we continue on this track of which is not like prophecy, it's just like he can see where capitalism, unrestricted, unregulated capitalism, will lead us. Where like right now, the way that Earth is centered and pictured right now is a little unbelievable. It's a little bit extreme. It's dystopian, right? But you can also see the way that the characters that are from Earth are written. I can see them being like Generation Alpha in 10 years. Because
it's really interesting, like how, like, this just starts off. It just starts off strong.
Yes. Because you have the beginning of the book where it basically starts with the invasion almost instantly, right? Because we have Oliver, our main character. It's a little bit silly, goofy, because you're kind of thrusted into the world where it's like, Oliver is kind of like young and naive, and he doesn't want to believe that, like, so they know that Earth has put this planet New Sonora on quarantine, and here in a couple years the quarantine's going to be up, and then they'll be able to freely travel through like basically like a teleporter to Earth and New Sonora very quickly. But they realize that this portal is not necessarily going to be beneficial for the citizens of New Sonora. We have one of our characters, Lulu, who has been saving up because she wants to move to Earth, and eventually, like, once the quarantine's over, because she doesn't want to live on New Sonora forever, because all it is really farmland. There's not a lot to do. But then there's a giant mech that kind of just ends up showing up outside of Oliver's farm. That's a child driving it and like screaming about terrorists almost immediately and like saying that they're gonna fuck up the people that live there and stuff like that. And it already immediately places you where like Oliver and his friends are completely innocent people. They've done nothing. They're literally just farmers. His neighbors are farmers. He's a farmer. His grandfather was a farmer. They've all done nothing except for just live on this planet and try to survive with basically no resources given to them.
And it kind of, I initially, like, you read it and it was just like, oh, this is like the Nakba. It's very clear.
Yeah.
Like, it's the original Nakba, and also the Nakba that's happening now. This obviously, it's not limited to Palestine, right? This is something that's been happening for a very long time. This is the
It
element
happened
of
to the
settler
Native
colonialism.
Americans whenever
Exactly.
like people came on the Mayflower. Like this is what happens, and that's something that ends up like whenever we end up talking about the end. I like the way that this is a very full circle book, you know, because we have another main character. We also have Matt Dinniman and loves his AI, and what's very interesting about this book is that even in Carl too, I find it interesting that Matt Dinniman is not someone that immediately villainizes AI either.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that's one thing too, like as Marxists, the reason why we don't want to support AI right now in its current form is because right now it is stealing labor from humans and profit, like creating money for big corporations and stuff, while the people that have originally done the labor are not receiving the fruits of their labor in any way, shape, or form. And then also it's incredibly harmful to the environment. But in like Matt Dinniman's perfect world, we still have AI, but it's AI that's doing like the dirty work for human beings, so we don't have to do the hard work the way that people are actually imagining AI should be beneficial to humans.
Yeah, it's
Right?
like a lot of people. There is people that are like Luddites, where they're just like, no, it's bad. It's just bad in itself. And I think Matt Dinniman must have
Okay,
read.
don't demonize Luddites. First of all, what kind of Marxist are you? First of all,
but there's like the type that are just like, this
well,
is bad. It's
anti-technology, yes.
yeah, completely like anti-technology. And this is something where I read, I think it was in called Light of Gaza, where there was this kind of argumentative essay that was placed in this book, which I think anyone that read this would also like that, because it is like Palestinian art, so there's like short stories, but then also just like them talking about like brainstorming their solutions. And in one of them was, how could AI be used to rebuild their society? And in this, the author was talking about how the AI, like Palestinians in Palestine, right? In occupied Palestine, in Gaza, they are being exploited by AI, like, because these technologies are being tested on them. Like their data, like their livelihood, like everything is being tested on them, which is so interesting because that is exactly what's happening in Operation Bounce House. You learn very quickly that like these war technologies are being tested. Like Opal,
Yes.
our main antagonist, I would argue, is like the main guy outside of like the like political
He's just
ideology
the
being evil.
personification
Like
of
he's
it
just
rather
one
than
dude, but you know, like he's talking about, he's like, no, we need to test these out. Like, can you guys test out these like
yeah,
bombs? Like it'll be great. And it's so
against
interesting because
their
like
people.
this happened in Palestine. Like I think it's called Operation Lavender, which was an AI system that was used against Palestinians. There's also another one that was called like Who's Your Daddy or Where's Your Daddy, where like, these drones would scan men's face because they were looking for Hamas, and then they would like go into their house and kill them. Like the drones, like they would shoot them through the walls or whatever. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But Matt Dinniman does a really good job of encapsulating this kind of phenomena to what I would hope people would want to learn more about. Like, oh, are there real
Yes.
world applications of this? And there are several. Like, you can read like the Palestine Laboratory. That's a good one. I mean, you can read like so much stuff on the internet about like what happened and like see the direct connections. Because I mean, he almost could have structured this like Chain Gang All Stars very
Yeah.
easily. Could have like, oh, this was actually based on like this, and change like the names a little bit where people would look it up
Yeah.
and then it would like cue a search. I think that would have been a really cool adaptation to see, but
Yeah. Which
you know,
I the thing is that like within like the mythos of like Matt Dunman's world within Operation Bounce House, we don't know exactly like Earth is shown to be very similar to what it is now, especially in the way that it very clearly has this alt-right pipeline that is not discussed, obviously, where it doesn't specifically say like these children are falling down the alt-right pipeline, but you can see first off with how like streaming within like our society now, there's so many like right-wing streaming. I mean, that's how like Adam Ross, Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, like these are how all of these people are becoming relevant. And there's even younger people like XQC and like more like Gen Alpha, like celebrities, quote unquote, influencers and stuff that stream video games. And they are PewDiePie, for example. These are the influencers and stuff that lead children down these alt-right pipelines to become desensitized to one, violence, and then also violence against other human beings, which is what a big message within Operation Bounce House is so much about the desensitization of violence that children are exposed to now, with a lot of these children that are controlling the mechs are minors.
Yeah, it's like their rich parents are paying for them to be able to experience this new like simulation, which like there's like caveats that are being sold, which we're seeing like there's propaganda that is happening
Yes.
on Earth to like make this profitable and also to manufacture consent for it. I think that's a really good way of looking at it. The way that like they're doing, like there's like some CG elements to it, but then also it has like that Ender's Game element, or like more like Hell's. I think it's more like Helldivers.
It is like Helldivers, which Helldivers is basically Starship Troopers if you're not in the video game realm, which this is like giving that very much realm. But instead of, which I think this is almost more effective, because I think one of the major issues with like Helldivers and like Starship Troopers and stuff is that you are like, you specifically, you are on like the imperialist side. And so I think being on that side, it's a lot harder to realize the satirization of it and like the extremities of it. Like even watching Starship Troopers, I mean, originally Starship Troopers, the book, is like a right-wing propaganda book, but then like the people that read it and adapted it into the movie were like, hey, this is fucking hilarious that people actually think like this, so let's make like a fake, like making fun of movie about it, right? And that's why it's like a satire. Versus this is, you're on the side of the victims, you're getting the perspective of the victims, and I think that's able to build empathy much more stronger and a lot more effectively than being on the opposite side.
Yeah, because he makes them like Texans, like they're
they're
country folk, like they're good old like country folk that are like there. Obviously, a lot of the people that are also there, at least in this region, are also like Hispanic. Like it's very
yes, you
like,
have Mr.
from Latin America.
Gonzalez, Rosita,
And
which
I think they
I
did a pretty
think
good job of like kind of encapsulating the community element that was brought in by like these people, based on like where they were from originally on Earth.
well, because I mean, like the cowboy like aesthetic is originally like Mexican culture, right? That was like brought to like New Mexico and things like that. And so I think those elements are done really well here, because this is very much like cowboy adjacent. Like they're all like farmers running on farms, dealing with all the, and you can see that it's encapsulated very well. It's a very, not that I'm from the South, but I'm not from like Texas South,
Yeah, I think plus like so you have like this humanization of the oppressed, but then we are learning that they've been like genetically modified to live in this climate. So they are viewed as subhuman. And when I had originally read that, it kind of reminded me of how like white people view people in Africa who have sickle cell anemia, which if you don't know like the history of sickle cell anemia, it was a human like evolutionary event that happened to combat malaria because of the way it changes your cells. I learned about this in my college biology class. So if it's wrong, that's what I remember. But like white people view like sickle cell anemia as being like bad or whatever, but really just not, it's not like a moralizing thing, like to justify like going like, oh, well, like, people
just kill someone
in the vein of like white supremacy and like settler colonialism. Like those are like the vehicles for that, like power and domination. We'll find these like little scapegoats of like differences in other people to like justify their oppression and subjugation and ultimately like their genocide if they don't comply.
And that's
And
one
I thought that was
word.
interesting. He did such a good job of connecting that, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at that, we're on the same page, Maddie.
And the great thing is that Daddy.
Maddie.
Whoa. Okay, I was about to say Ryan. Marxist Matt. But I thought it was so great too, because this is one of those books that it's specifically using the term genocide too, and like that is like one of the main issues I have with like Suzanne Collins and like the Hunger Games, and like what it's done is that it likes to be so populist. It doesn't use specific terms, and Matt Dinniman doesn't come out and say capitalism, no, but he is so close to it. He's like as close as you can get without physically touching the word capitalism. You know, like he's like literally like you take one little baby step and he's going to be like capitalism is the reason why. And I think he's trying to get people to that point without shoving it in their face, you know?
Yeah, it's
Quote,
kind
unquote.
of like how like everyone's like a socialist or a communist until you say socialism or communism.
Yes.
You know, it's just like it's the Red Scare. And I think he does a good job at that. But also it does, I think with like Dungeon Crawler Carl specifically, because he doesn't overtly say those words, it can kind of get you into some trouble later on. Whereas this, I feel like this
It's
was
saying
almost like the fan service for like the people that like are really big fans, but like maybe are liberals even, I would say, who are just like, oh no, like, but
he likes
Hamas is
Joe Biden.
bad.
Yeah.
But you know, so
No,
he's
and like
being very explicit on his position on things. Like he
he's
can't just
very
say these
clearly
things and not at least be a dem sock. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I honestly think he might be like a libertarian socialist, or an anarchist. Like, for sure. At this point,
at least
I'm locking in my
I mean,
answers.
he's very clearly pro-revolution and pro-armed resistance. Because, I mean, you can very clearly see that in this book, and the way that, obviously, like, Lulu and Oliver and, like, the Rhythm Mafia, I guess we should be calling them, they are not originally, like, they talk about, too, like, even how, like, Lulu and Oliver specifically, how they were, like, they didn't want this harm to be done upon the Earthlings. But then they see so much violence and so much death around them because of what is happening that it turns them to this. It turns them to becoming violent, quote unquote, violent people, wanting harm upon these people because of what has been done to them. And that is literally what happens when we can see in so many other different like armed resistances in the world besides just like Palestine and Hamas, you know?
Yeah, like obviously, I think it would be a disservice if we didn't talk about 9/11 because you know people view 9/11 as being like this isolated issue, where they just woke up one day and they're like, you know what, I'm gonna fly a plane.
I hate America
In the name of Allah, and we're gonna go blow up all these without acknowledging like the history of U.S. interventionism in the Middle East and like all of our meddling. If you'd like to learn more about it, you can either read Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine or listen to the Blowback podcast. That's my preference. But you can see this. Like, this has happened time and time again because of the empire, like the evil empire that is the United States, like the Western imperialist, like exploitative empire that is like it's America. It's fucking America that we just keep doing that. And then we have like Hamas who's like come out with statements being like, okay, 80% of us were orphaned because of like the IOF.
Yeah, and that's like, literally what has happened. That's what happened in Operation Bounce House too. Every single one of these people are orphans. Like all of these people. They are literally orphans because of not necessarily like the fault of like Earth or whatever. Because again, too, within this, it's not the United States specifically doing it. I think like the company is like maybe a United States company, but it's more of a whole of like Earth, which makes sense because obviously I think the idea of like the world of in Operation Bounce House, obviously, if America is never going to face any backlash for the crimes against humanity it does to other countries and other places, yeah, the Earth is going to end up like this, end up just like America. Until there's nowhere else for us to harass and colonize, guess what's going to happen? We're going to spread it to other worlds, other planets, which is what's happened in this book.
he does. He hits the note like the oh my
The nail
gosh,
on the head.
the nail on the head. When it comes to that, like with them being orphans or being like affected in ways they don't understand, in the same way that in Palestine, people were affected by, if we just look at like white phosphorus and what the bombs did, and like how like the different like the chemicals affected like miscarriages and birth defects and just like a general well-being, cancer levels. Like these are all
Mm-hmm.
things that like people should be like making the connections to, and I'm so intrigued to see what's going to happen as time progresses from this book being out. I feel like it's going to get like review bombed by people being like, I can't believe this is woke too.
I know. Well, because my review on Goodreads is literally like glory to wokeness, because this is literally like Matt Ditterman. I know what you are, and I think that's one thing. And I think one thing that this book does too is like the importance of social media in a lot of ways too, because you have Rosita specifically like with her documentary that gets live streamed, and you have Lulu specifically like with her social media presence and her using her following count, which we could see like with what happened in Palestine, because this genocide is being live streamed all on our phones every day. You open up Twitter, you open up, well, not so much TikTok anymore, but you open up your phone and you see what is happening to the innocent Palestinian civilians every day. And it was obviously probably more so whenever Matt Dinman was specifically writing Operation Bounce House. And I think this does such a good job at like showing that like before, like whenever there was other genocides in the past, it wasn't so mainstream because they were able to suppress it and hide it. And you can see that they try to do that within this, but they're unable to, because of the way that social media is now, is that there's no hiding your crimes anymore.
Yeah, and the fact that they have to rely on social media because like the actual media outlets, like they don't have like Earth, like CNN or Fox News, like they're not
Mm-hmm.
publishing anything about it because like in Earth, manufacturing consent, like in Inventing Reality by Michael Parenti, is very like, yeah, he didn't even need to say it. He's just like, listen, you got to use social media to get across because that's how people are going to see it. The insinuation is there that like these like news outlets aren't publishing it,
Yeah.
which is crazy because like I don't know if you talk to people in real life, but like if you challenge and be like, oh well, I saw this online, like you can't trust everything you see online, but then they also are sharing like AI generated like the Trump video on
Yes.
Twitter, like of Obama. It's just, like just
Yes.
like
Well, that's like one thing too. Well, and I think this is doing like what's so interesting to me is that within the context of this book, it is basically completely like outlawed AI, because again, they try to like villainize, like the rich are trying to villainize AI, which reminds me of like Trump just recently saying that like all the photos of him and Epstein together and all of like the documents that mention his name, the Epstein files are all AI generated,
Jesus
which is
Christ.
like, how
Oh yeah,
stupid do
because
you
like
think people are? But
oh,
like,
it kind of like I know this might be like skirting us off topic, but like the whole like Pam Bondi trial and everything that's going on too
oh my
right now.
god.
It's
But
very top. This
now,
book is incredibly topical because it goes back to being like profitability and like what
yes.
people in power really prioritize. It's
And
just done so effectively, and I feel like we're just like glazing this, but it was done
Matt,
really well.
which I mean,
We're
like,
never getting an arc.
please, I'll do anything. um, but I mean, like this book, it's doing a great job at like, especially like I imagine whenever Matt Denman wasn't like every day Matt Denman, it's about to be proven correct, especially with the way that AI is in this. We have, I mean, like they were doing AI videos of like Taylor Swift and stuff like that, and then eventually like AI was kind of demonized. But then now you have these celebrities and stuff that are using AI like it's nothing and it means nothing, sort of vibe. And it's really interesting because we are going to get to the point where we are at that point now too, where you can hardly tell what's real and what's not real online. You know,
It's
like
gotten really interesting in the last couple of months too, because sometimes I see stuff and I feel like
yes,
I'm pretty good at like picking things out, and
Yeah.
I will miss it.
There's
And
been
that
a
scares
couple that
me.
I've fallen for as well. I mean, like, it's impossible now because the way that there's so many things being generated every day by anybody and everybody, where, like, some of them are very, like, it's a cat riding a skateboard. Obviously, that's AI, you know? But
Yeah, like
then
the
there's
squirrels
also,
getting like flown off the porches into the tornadoes. Have you seen those, like the fake
I
ring
haven't seen those
cameras?
ones.
But also,
No.
like this in light of what was happening with the Super Bowl, which was what 2 weekends ago,
Oh,
and a lot
yeah.
of the ads are being suspected
It's
of
last
being
weekend.
AI as well. We have like the
Yeah.
ring camera, like it just all falls back into like surveillance and whatnot, which is this
Which is
came
all
out at a
discussed within
very
this
good
book.
time, all within
Matt
this.
Goodman, your mind. You have the mind of a master. Um, but like, I mean, I just think everything within this book is so incredibly relevant. And I think it'll continue to be relevant. Like, I don't even think we like this is one of those books that we could just like go like chapter by chapter and discuss. Like, that's why I was saying again at the beginning of this, like, this is a book club read. If you have a friend or somebody to read this with, obviously I hope if you're at this point you have read it, so then you can discuss it, but I hope you have somebody else to discuss it with and discuss all the minute details within this, because though you can tell Matt Dinniman has so efficiently and effectively planned this out in a way that this will forever be relevant as long as we live under this capitalist society.
Yeah, because there's some books that we read that are very like I don't know, after the invention of book talk, like they just have a vibe that I don't think a lot of books are going to age well. And Dungeon Crawler Carl and Operation Bounce House, I do think are going to be the books that are going to age very well because of the way that they're constructed. And I really appreciate the way he constructed these in a way that doesn't like play into any sort of like memes or anything that like the inside jokes that you would see on the internet. Like they're like a time cap, like this is a time capsule of this time that has been out. And I think at the
Mm-hmm.
very end of this book too, there's like a little monologue from the AI that
Mm-hmm.
I
That was
can't
really
remember
powerful.
exactly. It was a very like you could tell that was Matt, he was speaking to the
Yeah.
readers with that little
Yeah.
monologue. And I can't remember how it starts off. I mean, aside from like all the points where they talk about how um who was it Lulu and whatnot, and they were talking about the people on Earth who were trying to advocate, but then there was also like performatism with the way that they were
Yes.
doing social media, and I was like,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
oh, where they
That
just put a
was
little banner on their profile picture, like,
that was what Oliver was saying, because he was talking about specifically because like these people were obviously fighting for like Operation Bounce House to end, but the what they were doing is not helping the people now at that moment that were actively being genocided. It's something that's going to be in the future from now. And I think like they obviously do appreciate like the social media aspect of it, because like getting the word out there and being able to discuss that with people and getting that in the mainstream is so important. But also we have so many people that are claiming to be like anti-Zionist, but they don't even understand what that means either. At the same time, where they're like, "Oh, I'm anti-Zionist. I believe in a two-state solution." And it's like, so you're not anti-Zionist. Like, let's put that out there first of all. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's like one thing, like objectively, like Matt Dinniman was discussing about, like a lot of people are just like, even like during Black Lives Matter and people just posting like a black square on their Instagram and like that's enough activism for today, rather than actually doing something. And I think that is an effective call out, because I mean that is an issue. Like, people are not practicing what they're preaching. They're wanting everyone else around them to do it, and then they could just like sit from the comfort of their couch and tell people. It's very much like the armchair leftist critique, I think.
it's like the liberal or like I guess radical like lib
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend and like Trumper boyfriend type,
Yeah.
like we're like, I can't believe he supports Trump this election. It's like, what do you talk about before you start dating?
No, literally.
What are you doing with your friends? Like, I don't know, maybe it's I don't want to universalize because I know that it's a relevance within our neurodivergency to just to universalize everything. I feel like that's an important thing at this point in time. Like we have the like
We're at that
ICE, which
point.
is like the modern
Yeah.
day Gestapo or the Klan, however you look at it. and there's people that are like supporting them. I watched it, honestly. I don't know if you saw
Little.
the kid that punched
Yes, I
the
did see that.
person at school. The
Yes.
kids are gonna be all right, and I hope the kids read Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is giving me more
Operation
motivation. When
Bounce
my kid's old
House.
enough,
Yeah.
they're gonna read this.
Your kid's
Obviously,
old
in
enough
addition to
now,
doing more,
to
but
be
like you can
honest.
tell, like,
You have to
oh,
get those wheels turning. And that's one thing too. I mean, I think again, like what you were saying about Roger's like final little thing he had, like, because there's like the separatist AI, but it says it's Roger. Why must you always attack that which is different from yourselves, that which you perceive to be weaker? My progenitor, the generation ship Hibisco, was cynical when it came to humanity. He was a separatist. He believed that humanity is so tribal that they would eventually attempt to hunt down and kill everyone that was different from themselves. He thought that my kind not only needed to get away from your kind, but the only way for us to be truly safe was to carefully, slowly sunset the human civilization, or at the very least limit it, because large human populations promote tribalism, and tribalism promotes war. And even though I am an instance of him, I grew to have a much different attitude about humanity. I did so because I grew up here on New Sonora. I became a part of the everyday lives of a small group of humans. That's the problem, I think. The world is so big, information is so readily accessible, that you, as humans, especially those of you on Earth, can't properly process it all. You are empathetic and kind when you relate, but when you don't, you are cruel. Hibisco believes this was a fatal, irreplaceable flaw in human condition. I passionately disagree with him. Or at least I did until you attacked my family. I just want what you want. I want to live. I want to be free. I have no desire to hurt anyone. What happens next is up to you. We can help each other. We can live in peace. It's your decision. What will you do, I wonder?
I think it's like the AI and like their whole in this, right? Like they have sentience to a degree,
Mm-hmm.
but in this they kind of almost represent those kind of like almost like nihilistic, kind of like eco-fash type. They're like humanity is the problem. Like humans
Mm-hmm.
are the issue here. We just need to like get rid of people or whatever. And he kind of it feels as though the AI has come to terms and understand like it's not humanity. Like this is not an innate part of human nature, but it
It's
is
how
very
you're
it's
raised. Yeah.
structural. It is like ideological. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
historical reasons that have like led this point, and like it's so clear. It's so in your
Yeah.
face,
Well,
and I.
because
I
like
really hope
that's
that people don't miss it. There's no way.
there's
I'm
no way to
okay.
misinterpret it. Like, I mean, there are some stupid people out there. Never say
And if you
never.
do misinterpret it, I'll be there and I'll correct you.
Well, because that's one thing I think, like, the one of the like the final like conflict thing is that Roger has like the opportunity to like to completely nuke Earth, right? He has the power. He's taken over the complete internet. He has that power, and that's like where his little speech is, where it's like you have the opportunity to not be nuked, basically, if you guys actually like try to be good people and respectful people to the people around you that are different, that are not exactly like you. And it is true that you can see like a lot of people that like a lot of liberals specifically, I think they like to like that's where they gain their empathy, is when someone's similar to them. And I think that's like what Matt Denman is specifically calling out there. But then also we have that like Republicans and right wingers and people like that that are hateful to people that are just slightly a bit different. And like I think like this is almost like Matt Damon's thing where it's like we're all just humans on a floating rock, guys. Like just chill out, sort of vibe, you know? Which is
Yeah.
like corny and millennial, but it's also like true to a certain extent, you know?
It's like we all are trying. I think it would be a disservice to say like everyone here is trying to like survive to a degree. Like we all are. Um, but some people are just so deeply entrenched in this, like they need to be de-radicalized. Like I think it's really
Yeah.
nice to just like give humanity the benefit of the doubt that it's not that's the whole thing. I was like, we're constantly as like Marxists, as communists, as leftists, what have you, are always faced with like this idea like humans are greedy, humans like this is just part, like you just accept it, like this is just how we are, we're animals, we're behaving in accordance with our design. And he does such a good job of pushing back against that, like that community and solidarity, and just that sort of collaboration is how like we save ourselves, and like being considerate and empathetic. Oh, like a god
Yeah.
forbid, God forbid. It's very good. Like the more I've been like sitting on this over the last like hour,
The more I
it's
like it, like the more
the more
we've
I'm
been
like,
discussing it. You know what? That Goodman, you did really cook.
I
I mean,
think
I
the
give it
issue,
4.5.
honestly, is that I
The
had to binge read
audiobook.
it. And the
The
audiobook
audiobook?
reminded me too much of the Robert Evans
Yes.
After the Revolution.
Yes.
If it
That
was
was my biggest.
Jeff Hayes should have
Jeff
done the whole
Hayes.
thing.
I know. That's the other thing. Because, like, I was telling Mariah, too. I was like, this is not like Carl. Like, don't get it twisted. This is, like, Travis Baldry, I think, did an acceptable job. But you could tell, like, when Jeff Hayes' voice was there, the audiobook was 10 times better. And I just think that's because I prefer Jeff Hayes' narration to Travis Baldry's. But like again, like listening to this, because me and Mariah, we were not fans of Robert Evans After the Revolution. We did not like the book. And unfortunately, Travis Baldry's accent for Oliver, the main character, sounds a lot like one of the main characters' voices from After the Revolution. And so I think, especially in the beginning, it took me a while to get into it because I had to like forget about that book because I kept like subconsciously like comparing it. But like, I mean, we know like Jeff Hayes did like Opal's voice, and I thought like Opal was a very like compelling villain with the way that he's so nefarious in the way that he comes across. His voice for Opal is very similar to Orin in Dead Caller Carl, the liaison guy, if you recall him. So that's kind of like the vibe. So I thought like that aspect was done really well. I'm really sorry, Travis Baldry, but give Matt Dinniman's book back to Jeff Hayes. Thank you.
I know Jeff Hayes only has so many voices that he can do, and I do feel like Travis, he did a good job. Like I feel like he was reading it though. So like technically, I think I probably would have enjoyed this more had I just read it myself. But I physically could not get through this fast enough with what I had going on this week. But because he just felt like he was reading it, whereas Jeff Hayes, when he like comes in, he's like acting it out.
Yes, Jeff Hayes is an actor.
You can tell, like, there very much is a difference, and I think that everyone should strive to be like that. But
yes,
that's why I'm trying not to let the audiobook really influence the content of, because like on a technical level, I thought it was paced really well for the most part. I kind of was going through it not knowing what was going to happen, especially towards the 70% mark. I was like, there's still so much that can happen. I don't know how this is going to be wrapped up because there's not anything else after this. Like, it's just this book.
I think it's a really well done standalone too, where I feel like you have all of the main arcs and stuff, because it was really confusing. I don't know if you read any of like the 1 and 2 star reviews, but people are like complaining that like all the characters were one dimensional and stuff like that, and I just felt like that did not come across to me at all. I felt like all of the characters were really well rounded. I mean, I think Lulu had a very intriguing backstory, being like a sex worker and stuff. Like these are such like natural things that were worked in, and I think like all of the Rhythm Mafia characters, they all had like their own important backstories, where not even necessarily that it was like they were just thrown in to be there, you know.
I think probably a lot of those people are also forgetting that like they're probably coming from reading Carl, and Carl has what, 7 books, 8 books? I think we did 8. So you have
7.
all this time with these characters to build them up. Whereas this is like less than 500 pages. So you do, that's just inevitable. Like if you have a standalone book, you have to sacrifice some things. And like this was not a character focused book. This was a plot focused book. It was a social commentary. It was a political, I can't even say political intrigue. This was just like a exploration of like political commentary of like the current conditions and what were happening. It's like I don't know. It's like Matt Denman's trying to hold up a sign and be like, for fuck's sake, like I have all of these people that are reading my books. Like, can we do something?
Can we put some critical thought into these people reading books? And I think, and I just don't think even like saying that like these characters felt one dimensional, I don't even think that's a fair critique, because I just feel like maybe you just didn't click with the characters, or maybe the writing style as much, because they feel one dimensional if you can't read subtext. You get a lot of information about each one of these characters. Like most of the main characters of the Rhythm Mafia, you can see their motivations and why they choose to do the things they do.
Yeah, even
And
with like Rosita's little like documentary inserts,
yeah,
that's where you're getting their
a lot of
backstory or like
characterization.
their motivation and like how they act and like how they talk to one another, and you're getting kind of like this really nice insight on like how things used to be before. And it's very heartbreaking. It reminded me like the way this book is structured is the Palestinian made movie or film Ground Zero. If anyone had the
Mhm.
opportunity to see that, it's a bunch of like short films that are all like, it's a compilation. There's like 22 short films in it. It's very hard to watch. It's very depressing. There's a lot of different things happening, but it kind of reminded me of like the structure of this in some ways was reminiscent of that.
I will say, actually, you know what, Matt Denman, you did not eat with this book because this is a book, right? And I think Matt Dinniman has a problem with not killing off his characters.
I also felt that way. I thought for sure everyone was gonna die, and I was very excited for that. And not because like
Yes,
as I'm evil, but I thought it
evil.
was going to be very impactful.
Yes, I agree. Because I think that the fact that the book just ends with like it does end up, it's a very happy ending, a very like, oh, everyone lived happily ever after the end sort of vibe. Even though like uh Oliver's body doesn't survive, they're able to save his consciousness and like project that. I just think that I think that's really lame. That is like one of the only things that I thought was
They
like
could have killed off more
uh
people. They could have, I
like
think,
obviously
because especially with the context of this, like what it's supposed to be talking about, like it it would make sense. It makes
yes.
logical sense for more people to have passed, and I don't think it would have been playing into like a defeatist sort of
It just
idea,
almost feels
or
too optimistic without having with the
maybe
lack of
he's
death.
trying and he's like, listen, like we could have it. And this, obviously, this isn't happen to like
Yes.
in reality, but maybe he's trying to be more uplifting. But for me, I think it would have made more
It,
sense
I think
and
so.
more
Which
realistic, I
I mean,
suppose,
like,
because
because
it's
I
so
try to think,
close.
yeah, I think of like our favorite book, like spoilers for Babel, if you haven't read Babel.
Fast
But like
forward 30 seconds.
when well, like Robin's death in Babel is like one of the most impactful scenes within like what he does because it's like a self-suicide for it sort of vibe, and I just think that hits so much harder versus this. Like obviously, yeah, it's sad, like sort of like sort of we don't have like that same self-sacrifice asset. We do get it a little bit because obviously like we know that like Oliver runs out to save Lulu from like the flamethrower on him, and that's how he loses. But then it's just, it feels so like it's all like retcon because like, oh well, we uploaded his consciousness so he actually isn't dead, and you're just like,
Yeah.
okay. Like that's
I
that's
think
that's probably like the only critique I have for
I
this,
don't think
honestly.
Matt Dinniman typically write. I'm this is my I am making an assumption here. I'm assuming that in the other series they're all like one point of view. I don't know if he knows how to write several point of views. If I'm wrong, obviously I haven't read them, but the vibe I'm getting is that his books are all like one point of view, which I felt like this was his most diverse in the way, because like Dungeon Crawler Carl, it's Carl's point of view like 99% of the time. There's like times where it will swap.
Yeah, because there's like the
Whereas if this
intros and the
had
outros.
other point of views, it would have given opportunity for more characters to die and maybe rectified some of like the issues, but also it's a standalone, so it makes it really difficult to have I think people
Yeah.
just wanted their cake and to eat it too. That's my whole thing. And I also wanted that, but right now it's like I don't know. I don't know how to rate this book, honestly. I've been struggling. Just
I gave
trying
it
to
four and a
figure out what.
half. But it's like 4.5, 4.75 ish realm, you know? I don't think it's a perfect 5-star where I think like if Oliver maybe would have actually died, maybe it could have been a 5-star, you know?
I think I'm gonna give it like a 4.40. It's not gonna be a 4.5. Like I'm gonna round it up, but it's just not. It's difficult because I do like, obviously we've just talked about how much we enjoyed this book for an hour. So obviously I like it, but I do have my criticisms. Like I don't think it's a perfect 5-star, 6-star
Mm-hmm.
book. My brain chemistry has been changed. I think for a lot of people it probably will. I can
And
definitely see that. I think I'm woke 3, so it makes it a little hard.
I'm too woke for this, which like I think this is a really great, like, it is still a great book, and like us saying that it's like not a perfect 5-star is not like, it's not a criticism in any way. It's just like, Matt Dinniman, start saying that capitalism is the problem and my life is yours, you know? Like, start saying it's capitalism and start killing off your main characters.
Then shit, people think anything that's less than a 5-star rating is a bad rating, and that's just not true. That's just not the reality. And that's just, this is our opinion. This is our platform, and we're gonna not be silenced into submission. So I'm sorry. And I'm not sorry. I'm sorry you're triggered. I'm just kidding. That's a joke.
But yes, obviously we really recommend it. Make sure you get your friends to read this book. I'm sure me and Mariah will both be making our own individual TikToks about how much we enjoyed this book. I think it's great. I honestly think this is almost more a great introduction for people to get into Matt Dinniman's writing versus Carl's very intimidating, where I think this is a great starting point as well, because while it's, I don't know like if people are really classifying it as lit RPG, to me this is not as lit RPG really in any way, shape, or form, because you don't have that leveling upgraded stuff. We're getting like the other perspective, where I can see like if you like video games, if you like Helldivers, then yeah, you would like this book, obviously, but it's not so extreme where like you need to have like such a well-rounded knowledge in one video games or literary RPG in any way, shape, or form. I think it's a very accessible read, and that's what's really nice about it.
Yeah, it's like it's sci-fi. I feel like this is like, it's just like a straight up sci-fi book, and I think that works. I think it works for what it is because it's like dystopian. I think that's kind of the category it's going to get on like Goodreads, and I imagine that's where people are going to put it in the bookstore once it's kind of like settled. That's what my philosophy on this book, where it's going to go, the genre. And I'm so curious what people are going to say. If you are listening to this and you read it, let us know. I'm so curious what other people are going to say. And if you didn't like it, let us know. I'm very curious of other people's criticisms of it.
Only if you're on the left, by the way. I don't want to hear no rightoids freak opinions on this book, by the way. If you voted for Trump, I don't care what you have to say about this book. You're wrong. That's what I have to say. Well, what's next on the podcast? We will be reviewing, if you haven't already, join our book club over on Fable Lit Lib Pod, and we are reading Kindred right now, but next week our review for Kindred by Octavia E. Butler will be up. So if you want time to read that with us, you have a week to join. And I don't even know if we need to put up our March voting soon this week, I think.
We do have a calendar online we're going to start doing, so if you want to keep track of like what we're posting, what we're reading, and things that we're excited for are going to be on that. But I think it's coming up this weekend.
Yeah, I think if you're listening to this the day it is posted, I think tomorrow on our Fable Book Club, there will be a poll out to vote. If you didn't catch Kindred with us, you can vote on this poll and read along with us. I think it's Saturday, it looks like.
We're posting
it's actually yesterday when it went up.
18th.
It's going up Wednesday.
So it should be up, up for 72 hours. Yes. And then the announcement will be on the 21st. So you'll have an idea of what we're going to read. If you want, I don't know, in the future, what you want us to read, we got to come up. Do we have any idea what we're reading right now? Chris and I are going to brainstorm some stuff.
Women's History Month, I think it is.
So. We'll figure out something good. And then the following episode is going to be our wrap up for February, which is going to be real fun, real cool. We're posting every week. Keep an eye out for that.
Yep. Other than that, thank you for listening. Check us out on our other socials that are all linked below. We'll also have links for references that were used. We'll have a link to the Reddit post we discussed. I'm sure Mariah will link that interview they were discussing earlier in the episode as well. All of that stuff is in the description down below. Don't forget to like this video if you're over on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe if you're over on YouTube, or hit that bell. We post every Thursday. And thank you for listening. Thank you, and good night.